All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0, of course, brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. Go to johnnycuba.us. You can find the location nearest you to pick up a six-pack. That's how you can enjoy the Eastern Conference Finals Game 1 tonight. Make sure you all drink responsibly, and don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. All right, so who has quickly become one of my favorite hockey guys on social media, Pete Blackburn. What chaos, part of the All City Network. You can catch it on YouTube every day at noon. Pete, great to have you on the show here. I appreciate it. And I got to start by okay, you're a Boston guy. I'm a Miami guy, but I like you, all right? So I think everything's going to be okay. I got to start by telling you, before Game 6 the other night, and clearly you went to the game, you sent out a tweet, all right? The most ignorant thing you could tell someone attending a playoff game is to have fun. Motherfucker, that is not up to me. Pete, I don't think a tweet has ever resonated more with me in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, right? It's at this time of year, especially if you're going to a game, even if you're just watching a playoff game, never mind just going to one, it's not up to you. The enjoyment factor is not up to you. It's completely in somebody else's hands. And as somewhat of a control freak, like this time of year, I'm always like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I even bother? Like, this is completely excruciating. But yeah, it's also worth pointing out that I'm now 0-5 in my last Bruins playoff game. So you are welcome. You and the people of Florida are very welcome that I was in the building for that game.
Well, how many of those 5? I mean, we know the Panthers have won 6 straight there. How many of those 5 are Panther games?
That was the first Panther game. This dates back to the 2019 Stanley Cup Final. I was at Game 5 and Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final in Boston, both of which the Bruins lost. I was in New York for like the last time the Bruins played at the Coliseum when the Islanders eliminated the Bruins in the playoffs in the second round. So I've had some bad playoff luck for sure.
Dude, what is that like? You were at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals last year. I went to my first Stanley Cup final game. Heck, we've only had 2 opportunities here. I went to Game 4 against Vegas. Really fun. I think the final was 3-1, 2-1 or 3-1. Game 7, though, like, I'm a disaster, Pete, watching these games. I'm standing the whole time in the family room here. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was a bucket list experience. I obviously wish that it went better, but like the atmosphere leading up to it, the nervous energy was kind of crazy. You also had Zdeno Chara making his return in that game with the the face shield. That might have been Game 5, or it was one of the Game 5 or Game 7. Chara came back, and it was incredible. Yeah, it was just like a little heartbreaking that Game 7 kind of followed the same script as Game 5, where they opened the first period. They got a bunch of good chances, didn't have anything to show for it, and then they took a goal the other way at the end of the first period. And I was like, they're for sure losing this game. So I at least was able to brace for it, like in the final 40 minutes. So it wasn't like a complete gut punch, but yeah, it obviously still really sucked.
Pete, give me some thoughts here on the series with the Panthers. You know, how you felt about the Panthers at the start of the series, and then as the series went on. You know, do you have a ton of animosity toward the Panthers right about now?
No, not really. I mean, like I've watched the Panthers all year long, so this is who they've been all year, right? Like they constantly bring people into the fight and to their benefit. And I think they're one of like the scrappier teams in the entire NHL. And I've called them annoying with like endearing in brackets, because like that's the kind of team that you want when it comes to playoff hockey. So I thought they were a much better team than the Bruins heading into the series. I expected it to be sort of a quicker series, 5 or 6 games. It ended up being 6 games, obviously. You know, there were points where I thought that like the Bruins could get them, and I thought that was surprising. Like if the Bruins were able to generate a little bit more, get a little bit more offense going, I thought that series could have been had. Bob didn't amaze me. So, you know, I still think the Panthers are one of the better teams remaining, obviously. I think they're going to put up a really good fight against New York. I might even say that they're like a little bit more poised to win this based off their style of play and their forechecking. But I think the Bob needs to be better. I'll say that because I trust New York to generate a little bit more than the Bruins did.
You know, I like asking national guys. I'll count you as a national guy, Pete. I like asking national guys about Sasha Barkov. And
Oh
it's
man.
funny because, like, I asked PK Subban this a few weeks ago. I host shows on ESPN, and I asked PK Subban this last week, and I said to him, I go, is this kind of a breakout postseason for Sasha Barkov? And what I mean by that is, is he about to become a household name? And PK gives me the same answer that most national guys give, which is, you're nuts if you don't think he already is a household name.
He should be. If he's not, like, I think it's ignorance on anybody else's part. Like, if you watch a lot of hockey, you know how important he is to that team. You know how good he is. He's, being a guy from Boston, he kind of is cut from the Patrice Bergeron cloth. And so, yeah, like Barkov is a monster, and he was the best player in the series against the Bruins. I think that he's their X factor basically every single night, and just kind of a gem to have this time of year when you can shut down opposing top talent, but also have a guy generate himself and kind of push his line forward.
Like, I've been making the case here on my show the last few days, really since the Panthers wrapped up the series, that Sasha Barkov, and especially after he won his second Selke trophy, we should be talking about him down here, not necessarily next to Marino and Dwayne Wade, but he's like right under those guys as far as greatest South Florida sports figures. If he played in a market in the Northeast or in Boston, how would he be treated?
Yeah, I think that he would, again, I think that he'd be like the Patrice Bergeron. I think that people would give him a lot more of his due. Like, I will say, if he wins a cup with the Panthers, I think that that's kind of going to elevate him even beyond. Like, you talking about, does he belong in the Marino Wade discussion? Like, if he wins a title, I think that he's, from an outside perspective, he should be right there. He's been one of the best players in the league for a long time, to the point where, there was always that annual discussion, who's the most underrated player in the league. And it was always Barkov, to the point where you're like, how long can a guy be underrated before he is like, we all recognize he's incredible. Right. So there was actually right before Game 6 last week. It was the Game 6 was the day of the Scotty Scheffler incident at the Open. Yeah. And I was like, okay, Boston, please go out and arrest Sasha Barkov for no reason, please, and make him miss Game 6, because that's how important he is to that Panthers team.
What have you made of Tkachuk so far in the postseason? Because I think that really the second and third lines for the Panthers left a little bit to be desired in the Boston series. They're going to need a whole lot more from Tkachuk in that second line against the Rangers, right?
I agree, 100%. It made me really nervous as the Bruins series went on, and as Florida had them up against the wall. I was like, the scariest part about this isn't that they're a better team. It's that they're a better team with their two postseason dogs in Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe being really quiet to that point. And I was like, there's going to be a time before this series wraps up that Tkachuk and Verhaeghe kind of break through. And it really didn't happen, and the Bruins still lost. But I do agree, going up against a better Rangers team, a team that's better than the Bruins, they're going to need those guys to get going 100%.
Do you care about home ice? I mean, with the series starting tonight, do the Panthers have to get one of these first two games?
No, I don't think so. Like, I just think that this series is very, very evenly matched, and these two teams there's not a ton separating them. So, like, even if one of these teams goes up, whether it's the Panthers or the Rangers, one of these teams goes up 2-0, I'm not going to write the other one off, even regardless of where the wins come from.
Have you ever been to a postseason game at the Garden? Madison Square Garden?
I have not, no. I've never been to a hockey game. I've only been to concerts at Madison Square Garden.
I've never been
Incredible
to a hockey
building.
I've only been to concerts too. I've never been to a hockey game at Madison Square Garden. It looks like the coolest atmosphere, right?
Yeah, 100%. It looks amazing. And I know, like, Rangers fans are New Yorkers, so they're obnoxious. And now Knicks fans are out of the playoffs, so they can hop on the Rangers bandwagon. I'm sure the Rangers are only going to pick up steam crowd-wise as these playoffs roll on. So that might be a bit of a hellish atmosphere for the Panthers.
So for the Panther fan, and listen, this right now is the golden age of Panther hockey. I mean, I've been a Panther fan since the very first year, 1993. I mean, I went 26 years. That's a prison sentence. I went 26 years in between playoff series victories. So right now, this is the golden era of Panther hockey. For the Panther fan who maybe is a little bit uninitiated, What are we looking for with this Rangers team?
The Rangers team, like they got a good forward group, and they put a lot of pressure on. They don't take their foot off the gas. I think that where they can be had is on the back end on their blue line. Like they have, I don't want to say they have like one good pair. They have like one and a half good pairs, I would say. And so I think they can be had. But honestly, Igor Shesterkin right now is the problem if you're a Panthers fan, because Igor's the best goalie in the playoffs remaining. He hasn't had the best regular season, but he turned it on in the playoffs and was a massive difference maker in that Carolina series. So I would be scared of Igor, and I would be scared of the top line, and I would be scared of their special teams, because both their power play and their PK did a really good bit of work against Carolina.
This is the type of series, though, like, I mean, these are two high-scoring teams. The Panthers obviously like to grind things out. Do you expect it to be a high-scoring series?
No, I think that this is going to be like a pretty grindy. Like, there's obviously guys who have skill, and that's going to show through at points during the series. But I think it's going to be kind of a war, and I think that may be something that is at the top of my list for things that I'm interested in, because there's not history between these two teams. But a series like this is where you kind of establish history, and I expect there are to be fireworks from both sides. We talked about Florida and how they're annoying, endearingly, and I think the Rangers have a bit of that to them as well. And like Jacob Trouba is a kamikaze. They have Matt Rempe. Like he'll probably find a way to establish himself in that series. So I would expect there to be fireworks and some bad blood.
They've only met in the postseason one time. It was back in 1997. But like you said, this is how the rivalries are made. I mean, similar to the Bruins, they'd only met in the postseason one time back in 1996, and now 2 years in a row. Like, it feels like now Panthers and Bruins, they're rivals now, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely think so. It's more so than, like, I think if you told people a handful of years ago, okay, in 2024, Bruins Panthers is going to be a more heated rivalry than like Bruins Lightning, people would be like, no chance. And here we are. Like it can turn very quickly. And like I've made that point too with the Bruins and the Canadians. Like Bruins fans don't really feel any kind of way about Canadians fans outside of just like having it be in their DNA that they're not supposed to like them. Right now, like the most hated rival for the Bruins is the Leafs, because they've just kind of always been there, and the Bruins have always gotten the better of them. So it's just kind of things change like that, and it happens pretty quickly.
All right, give me who you like here, Pete. Panthers, Rangers, how many games?
I will say I think it's going to be a great series. I'm going to lean the Rangers against my better judgment. I think the Panthers might be the better team, but I think the Rangers, with Igor going the way that he is, that might be the difference. So I'm going to say Rangers in 7.
And you know what? Give me a real quick preview here, because we're not paying as much attention to the West. The games are so late. Oilers, Stars, give me a quick rundown there.
Oh, man, the Dallas Stars are, I think, the best team remaining in the bracket. They are the most adult team in terms of like their structure and how they check every box, and they play responsible hockey. They don't make a lot of mistakes. I like them over Edmonton just because of that. Like the team that makes the fewer amount of mistakes in a series with like in the conference final, I think is more likely to win. Jake Ottinger is finally getting going. So I think they have the edge in goaltending. I think they have the edge in a forward depth, where obviously the Oilers hold an advantage is top flight talent like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl are two of the best players in the world. So if those guys go off, the Oilers could win. I think that's going to be a great series, but I like Dallas.
I'll let you go with this, Pete, because obviously you're a huge hockey guy. I'm a hockey guy, although I'm known as a basketball guy. I mean, I was on the Miami Heat broadcast here for 13 years. We're a basketball town, essentially, here in South Florida. But I've been preaching for years that, and forget like the Panthers. The Panthers have only been a real good team the last few years. If you're not paying attention to the Stanley Cup playoffs, like, you're so fucking stupid. If you like sports, like, what are you doing if you're not paying attention to what's going on? These games are unbelievable, Pete.
100%. And like, it's the easiest to enjoy when you don't have a dog in the fight. Like we mentioned earlier, it just tune in, like soak it up, especially in these conference finals. I think these conference finals are going to be incredible. So if you're on the outskirts or you're on the fence, maybe don't have anything to do, I would highly recommend it. It is quite a ride.
Pete, tell everybody what Chaos and how they could catch it. Go ahead.
What Chaos, Monday through Friday. We go live on YouTube at noon Eastern, and we cover the playoffs, and we do it in a fun and kind of personality-driven way. It's just kind of, we're two guys, two fans that just love hockey, three fans who just love hockey. And so every Monday through Friday during the playoffs, live on YouTube, but it's also on Spotify and Apple Music after the fact. So you can just search What Chaos, and you'll find it wherever you want to consume it.
Awesome. Great job, Pete. Keep up the great work. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.